New tonight, looking up at the moon may have a different meaning for many people living in the state of Texas. Our media partners at Texas Monthly say Texas is leading a lunar gold rush. Joe Papalardo has covered spaceflight in Texas for more than 2 decades now. He's joining us for tonight's discussion on the topic. We know many people have likely heard of SpaceX or Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin space company. In your article, Joe, you highlight 2 Texas startups that are racing back to the moon. One is called Firefly, which is based in Cedar Park. The other one is called Intuitive Machines, based in Houston. You know, NASA has already been to the moon before. Why is it so important to make the trip back?
I think it's a really great question, and it depends so much on who you ask. The lunar exploration, the return of the moon, can't be done without robotic explorers to lead the way. There's a lot that we don't know about the moon, and if people are going to be going back there and spending any length of time there and possibly using the moon to extract resources so they can stay longer, they need to know more about it. There's water ice on the moon. If there's a way to use those resources to extend the legs of a spacecraft and not ship that material from the planet Earth up into space, refuel at the moon, and then go on to somewhere like Mars or even farther. So there's that sort of idea behind it. And then there's geopolitical tensions. If you look in Washington, D.C. these days, the reason why the moon is top of the agenda is because China is going to the moon. And in the geopolitical race between the United States and China, the moon is definitely a point of contention, a point of pride. And also whoever is there gets to set the standards. It's almost like the Arctic. If you want to set the rules, you need to be a player there. And the United States very much wants to set the norms of behavior, they call them, at the moon, and not have the Chinese do it. And their space agency does have a spotty record when it comes to dropping spent boosters on villages and causing space debris and other sort of reckless behavior. So we don't want to see that replicated on the moon.
The lunar landing missions, by the way, they're possible with the help of money from Congress. So how is SpaceX mission to Mars, specifically that mission, complicating these efforts, you think?
Right. There seems to be a tendency to see the fight as moon or Mars, and there's a reason for that. If a lot of attention gets fixated on Mars, as Elon Musk and others in the administration have been banding about, let's be the first people on Mars. That'll be a true first. But having a sustained presence on the moon enables a trip to Mars, especially if you get resources going on the moon to restock your spacecraft on the way to Mars, but also just learning how to do it. I'd rather have an emergency a couple days away at the moon rather than on Mars. So if there's going to be a learning curve, we should learn it somewhere closer. It's not easy to live in space at all. It's inherently dangerous every single second you're up there. So there's lessons to be learned in human space exploration, and the moon seems to be a logical place to do that. The attention that Mars takes away from the moon is funding, and the funding that these lunar lander companies are relying on to set up their operations, improve their operations, comes from NASA and also from the Pentagon. So if the moon becomes less of a focus for the government and Mars takes up all the attention, that money will go that way as well. So that leaves the landing companies either to adapt their designs for a new environment or face the wrath of their investors when the government money doesn't enable them to fulfill the promises that they're making.
What's next for Intuitive Missions and Firefly?
Well, the great thing about this story is that I caught them between missions. They have each made landing attempts on the moon before. Firefly stuck theirs. Intuitive Machines tipped over after landing softly on the moon. Their lander is actually tipped over and weren't able to do a lot of the mission requirements that they wanted to. So for both of these companies, there's more launches coming. Firefly's got to repeat its success. Intuitive Machines has another shot at redemption. The NASA program that they're being funded by planned for these missions to be high risk, learning missions while they're actually launching and landing on the moon. They're learning how to do it. So there's a high level of risk involved in this. So they have multiple missions. And later this year, early next year, both Firefly and Intuitive Machines are going to be flying landers to the moon. and trying to land there. And they'll be broadcasting it live. And I'm telling you, spaceflight is better than sports, especially now in Texas where there's home teams to root for.
That's a great way to put it. All right, thanks then to Joe Papalardo. Thank you so much for tonight's discussion, so much insight. You can read his entire article right now on TexasMonthly.com or in the September issue of Texas Monthly.